35 killed in Israeli airstrikes on Yemen following attack in Qatar. Trump's tepid response to Israeli strike in Qatar sparks credibility crisis. UK fires Ambassador Mandelson over Epstein ties amid scandal. Lastly, Ghana accepts Nigerians, other West Africans deported from US. Good afternoon, welcome to Around the World in 30 minutes on Politics and Business Television. I'm Fatima Abubakar Oyibo. Many thanks for joining us. At least 35 people were killed and more than 130 were injured after Israeli airstrikes targeted multiple locations in Yemen on Wednesday, a day after Israel bombed a residential building in Doha, Qatar, in an apparent attempt to assassinate Hamas leaders, report says. According to Yemen's Ministry of Health on Thursday, the strikes hit densely populated residential areas in the capital, Sana'a, as well as the Al Jawf governorate. The ministry described the casualties as a preliminary toll and warned that the death count may rise as rescue teams continue to search for survivors beneath the rubble. The ministry reported that among the locations struck were homes in Al Sana''s Al Tahrir neighborhood, a medical facility on 60th Street, and a government compound in Al Hazm, the capital of Al Jawf. Civil defense teams are currently working to extinguish fires and pull survivors from the debris. The attacks caused widespread damage to civilian infrastructure, including fuel and health facilities. Reports stated that martyrs wounded and several homes were damaged as a result of the Israeli attack on the Moral Guidance headquarters, adding that Israeli forces targeted the health sector in southwest Sana'a and government buildings in Al Jawf. The Yemen Oil and Gas Corporation also confirmed that a medical station on Al Sitin Street was struck during the bombardment. Moving on now, tensions in the Middle East have escalated dramatically as Israeli forces launched a fresh wave of airstrikes on the Gaza Strip, killing more than 70 people in a single day. The bombardment, which also extended to parts of Yemen and Lebanon, has drawn sharp condemnation from global humanitarian groups who warn of worsening conditions for civilians already facing starvation and displacement. Israel's military campaign, ongoing since October 2023, has now claimed over 64,000 lives in Gaza, with thousands more fear trapped beneath rubble. In a very statement, Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani accused Israel of committing state terrorism and called for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to be brought to justice. The remarks follow a deadly Israeli strike on Doha and come ahead of an emergency Arab Islamic summit scheduled in the Qatari capital. Despite the attack, Qatar reaffirmed its role as a trusted and impartial mediator in the region, vowing to continue diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the crisis. Meanwhile, the humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate. Health workers report severe malnutrition among children, with hospitals lacking basic medicine and supplies. One doctor described the condition as inhumane, noting that many children are in dire need of treatment abroad. As forced evacuations intensify and safe corridors remain blocked, international pressure mounts for a ceasefire and a renewed commitment to peace talks. The world watches anxiously as the region teeters on the edge of further chaos. Political analysts are raising alarm over President Donald Trump's muted response to Israel's recent airstrike in Doha, Qatar, a move that has not only strained diplomatic ties but also cast doubt on the United States' credibility in the Gulf region. The Israeli attack, which targeted Hamas leaders during ceasefire talks, killed 6 people, including a Qatari security officer. Despite Qatar's status as a key U.S. ally and host of one of the largest American military bases in the Middle East, Trump's initial reaction was subdued, stating he felt very badly about the location of the strike and was not thrilled by Israel's actions. Experts say the lack of a firm condemnation from Washington sends troubling signals to regional partners. Khalil Jahshan, one of the Arab Center in Washington, described the response as contradictory and not befitting a superpower, warning that it undermines America's role as a reliable mediator. The White House later issued a statement calling the strike unilateral and not advancing U.S. or Israeli goals, but stopped short of labeling it a violation of sovereignty. Qatar, meanwhile, denied claims that it was informed ahead of the attack, further complicating the diplomatic narrative. The incident has sparked broader concerns about the erosion of trust between the U.S. and its Gulf allies. Kristen Colt Ulrichsen, one of the Baker Institute, noted that the strike crossed strong red lines and jeopardized Qatar's role as a neutral mediator. With Israeli officials continuing to issue threats and the U.S. State Department remaining silent, analysts warn that Washington's credibility in the region is at risk of long-term damage. As tension mounts, the world watches to see whether the U.S. will recalibrate its stance or further alienate its strategic partners. Shockwaves rippled across the United States on Wednesday as a prominent conservative activist and Trump ally, Charlie Kirk, was fatally shot during a campus event at Utah Valley University. Kirk, who was 31, was addressing a crowd of over 3,000 when a single bullet struck him in the neck, reportedly fired from a nearby rooftop in what authorities are calling a targeted attack. The FBI, along with state and local law enforcement, immediately launched a full-scale manhunt, urging the public to submit any footage or tips that could aid the investigation. Initial confusion surrounded the suspect's identity, with two individuals briefly detained and later released after interrogation. FBI Director Kash Patel confirmed that neither had ties to the shooting. Utah Governor Spencer Cox described the incident as a political assassination and vowed to pursue the perpetrator to the fullest extent of the law. President Donald Trump, in a somber video address, blamed the radical left for fueling political violence and ordered flags on federal buildings to be flown at House staff in Kirk's honor. Still to come, India's carpet industry grinds to a halt as U.S. tariffs bite. More details of the stories and more content to come after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Moving on now, India's renowned carpet industry is facing an unprecedented crisis as steep tariffs imposed by the United States have halted all consignment to its largest export market. In Bhadohi, known as the carpet city of India, manufacturers say production has come to a standstill with no shipment dispatched to the U.S. in over a month. The 50% tariff introduced in two phases by President Donald Trump has left exporters reeling, threatening the survival of an industry that employs over 2.5 million people nationwide. Industry leaders warn that the situation could trigger mass unemployment and migration as weavers and artisans, many of whom work from home, lose their livelihoods. The Carpet Export Promotion Council reports that the U.S. accounts for nearly 60% of India's carpet exports, making the impact especially devastating. With margins already tight, exporters say that new tax burden is unsustainable, and without swift diplomatic resolution, the industry may face irreversible decline. Veteran exporter Surya Mani Tiwari described the crisis as the worst phase of his 50-year career, stating the industry will die a painful death if the situation doesn't improve in the next 2 months. As warehouses fill with unsold inventory and weavers wait anxiously for new orders, hopes now rest on renewed trade negotiations between New Delhi and Washington. For the families whose future are woven into every thread, the stakes couldn't be higher. In a stunning diplomatic shake-up, the United Kingdom has dismissed its ambassador to the United States, Peter Mandelson, following explosive revelations about his long-standing ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The decision came after newly surfaced emails and documents revealed Mandelson's continued support for Epstein, even after his 2008 conviction, with one handwritten note describing him as his best pal. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who had defended Mandelson just hours earlier, reversed course under mounting pressure and ordered his immediate withdrawal. The scandal erupted after U.S. lawmakers released Epstein's infamous birthday book, which included personal messages and photos of Mandelson alongside Epstein. Additional emails published by Bloomberg showed Mandelson offering strategic advice and expressing outrage over Epstein's legal troubles, suggesting they were unjust. The Foreign Office acknowledged that the depth of Mandelson's relationship with Epstein was materially different from what was known at the time of his appointment, prompting swift action to protect the integrity of Britain's diplomatic corps. The dismissal has triggered a wave of political backlash, with critics questioning Starmer's judgment and vetting process. Mandelson, a veteran Labour figure with a history of controversy, admitted the emails were very embarrassing and expressed regret over his association with Epstein. As interim ambassador James Roscoe steps in ahead of President Trump's upcoming state visit, the UK government faces renewed scrutiny over transparency, accountability, and the reputational risk of political appointments. Coming back to Africa now, Ghana has begun accepting West African nationals deported from the United States, including Nigerian State President John Dramani Mahama on Wednesday. According to reports, Mahama disclosed that the first batch of 14 deportees made up of Nigerians, a Gambian, and others had already arrived in Accra, with Ghanaian authorities facilitating their return to their respective countries. He confirmed that Ghana was approached by the U.S. to accept third-party nationals who were being removed from the U.S., and they agreed. He further stated that West African nationals were acceptable because all fellow West Africans do not need a visa to come to Ghana. The arrangement comes amid Washington's intensified deportation drive under President Donald Trump, who has pushed for removals to third countries as part of his hardline immigration policy. Trump has previously overseen deportations of migrants to Eswatini, South Sudan, and Rwanda, despite safety concerns raised by rights groups. Nigeria, however, has rejected similar overtures from Washington. And that wraps up the program. But before we go, the headlines again. 35 killed in Israeli airstrikes on Yemen following attack in Qatar. Trump's tepid response to Israeli strike in Qatar sparks credibility crisis. UK fires Ambassador Mandelson over Epstein ties amid scandal. Ghana accepts Nigerians, other West Africans deported from US. For more updates and in-depth analysis, follow Politics and Business TV English on YouTube and Facebook. Connect with us on Instagram at PMBTV.English and TikTok at PMBTV.English. Remember to subscribe and stay informed. From me, Fatima Abubakar Oibo, do have a lovely day and bye for now.